Hi everybody, it's Sherri. Welcome back to my channel. This is another episode of 3D Interference. And today I'm going to talk about birth trauma and womb trauma and a bunch of other things actually. Without trying to make this video too long, I'm going to just give major points. Otherwise, this could be a 2-3 hour video, to be honest with you. I could do a whole lecture just on this. And I want to make these kind of bite-sized informative videos instead of making them too long. So I'll try my best to get through this one without kind of going overboard with information. But this is an important topic because as an aspect of the 3D interference, I believe that the dark players work to target us in the womb on purpose so that we can lower our vibration and disconnect our light even before we're born. And if it's one of those chicken and the egg situations, it's even, it goes beyond that. It's traumatizing the adult and causing them to have an array of limiting beliefs and fear and shame, so that when if they're able to get pregnant, if a couple is able to get pregnant, then the woman is already traumatized and in fight or flight, thereby making it really challenging for the fetus to grow properly and energetically integrate. And so they really target the baby before they're even conceived. But we got to start somewhere, right? So we're going to start with the conception of the baby and the mother, focusing more on the mother right now, or the surrogate. So a woman energetically brings forward a baby way before conception takes place, before they're conceived, before they're even a thought many times, although many women, including myself, knew in high school that I was going to have a son named Jordan. I didn't know exactly how old I was going to be, but many of us already have an idea of our children that are coming through. And that's because we have an energetic connection to their soul, and we communicate with them in very subtle ways that we consciously aren't always aware of, but subconsciously there's a communication going on there and a very deep knowing that they're coming through. And that's why women have premonitions, and they just know that they're going to have children later in life, how many they're going to have, if it's a boy or if they're boys or girls, etc. And so when a woman and the soul of the child unify, meaning that the soul knows that they're going to be coming in relatively soon. Now, the time matrix makes things complicated, so it's really hard to determine exact time frames, but like sometimes roughly a year before the baby is ready to be conceived, the soul of this being will come through and start to integrate slowly with the mother's energy field. This is a very complicated process. I'm simplifying it, as many things I talk about in this video. I'm going to have to simplify it because it can get quite complicated. And I find that the best way to explain things to people is in a very simplified way, so that it is easier to understand. And sometimes I think when we get too focused on the details, we lose the point. And so it's easier to just kind of go over the macro as opposed to the micro. So many generations ago, because the children coming through were not as high vibrational as they are now, the integration process wasn't as challenging because they were lower density beings coming through in the lower density bodies, not because that they were not evolved spiritually at all. It just, they were more integrated, like more earth beings were coming through, meaning they had many earth lives, so it was easier for their soul to integrate into this lower density field. So it wasn't that challenging. But as more star seeds that are very galactic, or they're very connected to the inner earth higher density fields, it's really challenging for them to come through. So there's a very long integration process energetically that takes place first. So what that means is that the energy of the soul, the energy of the mother that is carrying this child, will have to meet and start to merge gradually over time. I mean, this could be years, it could be up to a year, or it could be months, just depending on, it really depends on where the mother is, and how high her density is, and what she's able to integrate and how quickly. So it's different for everybody. There's no fast rule. So when the soul starts to integrate with mom's energy, It's just done in the etherical realm. So it's just the soul's energy and the mom's energy are just integrating slowly. They're just kind of meshing together. And this could be when the mom has a conscious knowing that their child is coming through, or they know they have a knowing that they're going to get pregnant or something is going on, because they have this acute awareness of the soul nearby. I talk to women all the time and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel her, or I feel him, or I just knew, or I felt them. And so that's because they are feeling the energetic convergence of the two souls' energy. And that is to prepare the mom, because the mom's physical body needs to prepare for a high volume of high frequency energy to come through. And so it takes a little bit of time for the physical body to prepare for that. That's why there are a lot of miscarriages for women who are bringing in high frequency or starseed children, because their body is not able to maintain the energy. And when I coached women years ago, I would always tell them miscarriages aren't always a bad thing. They seem like they are in the moment because we don't know the full picture. But what I've been told is that miscarriages are on purpose a lot of times in order to prepare the body. So the pregnancy was never supposed to be sustainable. And your higher version of yourself, your higher consciousness knows this. It's kind of a dry run. So it's getting the body prepared so that when the soul's really ready to come through, the body's prepared and ready to hold that high frequency. So sometimes multiple miscarriages are needed. Now, of course, there's always two sides to everything that I talk about. There's the 3D interference side, which I'll get into, but then there's also the energetic side, which is really important. It has nothing to do with the 3D interference. It's just simply an adaptation, but this process that needs to take place. It's all energy, 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 energy. So what I'm speaking about right now, the integration process, is energy, not necessarily 3D interference, but there are a lot of things done that we have talked about previously that can cause women to have miscarriages or infertility, etc. I'm simply just talking about the process of integration of the soul and the mother and the energy involved in that, and complications that can occur. So once the soul has integrated enough and the physical body is prepared, again, there's no time frame and it's different for everyone. And it also has to do with the soul of the starseed coming through, where they're coming from and the density that they're in, how long that takes. So when the conception actually occurs and the baby is now fetus, and it starts to develop, starts as cells, and it develops over the 9-month gestation period, which is going to be much lower in the future, but I'll talk about that maybe in another video. Once that occurs, then it's just a continuation. So not only is there a physical growth of the body, the fetus, but there's also an energetic growth that occurs, and that integration process continues. So the baby is not in the body 100% of the time, almost until the birth. They have the ability to go in and out. So they're still tapping into other lifetimes they're in. They're communicating with the mom and the family and the parents energetically and telepathically outside of that space, through dream space, astral, all these different mechanisms. So they're not always in the body. But let's get to 3D interference. So what the 3D interference does now is to ensure that mom is in a constant fight or flight and a stressed mode, just with the whole mentality of pregnancy itself and the birth process. So, I should have said this in the beginning, but I think most of you know my background by now, but in case someone just happens to find this video, I don't do it anymore, but I was a hypnobirthing practitioner for about 5 years, heavily for 3, and then, here and there for the last 2, kind of off record, just for friends and people that were repeat families that were on their second child, where I wasn't really doing it anymore, but I was just going to help the people I knew because I was moving on to other things. So I didn't have time for it anymore, but I absolutely loved it. And what hypnobirthing is one mechanism or one childbirth education platform. It's a class taught by or created by Marie Mongan, wonderful woman who created a childbirth education class to help empower women in ways that in her time didn't exist in the 50s and 60s, 1950s, 60s. And she created a mechanism of helping and coaching women to have empowered birth through education, just understanding what our body does and how amazing it is, and how we can birth our babies without help and guidance from all of this medical intervention, but also how to self hypnotize and learn relaxation and breathing techniques throughout your pregnancy, so that you are out of the fight or flight and you remain more calm and balanced throughout the practice of the pregnancy, with repetitive practice of like guided meditations, all sorts of techniques. And then you have the practitioner that comes in and works with the couple for 4 to 5 different weeks, which is 3-hour sessions. And we also take it further, and there are hypnosis sessions that take place from a trained hypnotherapist, which I am, and we would do fear releases and many different scripts to help the women work through their past traumas, unknown fears, known fears, and many other things, health issues, all sorts of things, to help them to remain balanced. So I did this for many years. So a lot of the information I know comes from those clients, but also clients that I've worked with post-pregnancy, where I learned a lot about the things that went wrong throughout their pregnancy, that their soul had to tell me, children come in and tell me, but also my own traumas with my 3 pregnancies, because I didn't know about any of this. So when I had when I was pregnant with my 3, I had one traumatic pregnancy, and or really just birth, one after another, that were quite challenging for me, and the fear just compounded and made it worse. So it wasn't, and I think that was by design, so that by the time I was emotionally, mentally, and spiritually aware of hypnobirthing, I would be ready and motivated to help women. And I think that happens a lot in my life and for many. It's like you have this experience and you want to use that. It's a motivating factor to help you guide others in the future, because it's personal to you. And this is personal to me. I do recall a lifetime in Lemuria where I was a midwife, and it was very important for me to bring in souls in a very peaceful, harmonic way. There was a lot more to it than I'll explain in this video. Maybe one day I'll do a video just on that, but I do remember that. And it was a beautiful ceremonial process. I apologize for jumping around so much, but I'm just allowing my thoughts to come through and just navigating from there. But the history of birth is actually really important, and we should talk about that before I continue with the birth trauma itself. You know, back in the day, and starting with Lemuria and in many other planets in Earth, many different spiritual beings bring in new life in a very spiritual, harmonious way. It's conscious, it's intuitive, and it's very peaceful for mom and baby. So this notion of painful, traumatic births was something created here. And I'm going to explain a little bit of why that is. But back in Lemuria, the parents would call in the child, and they would communicate with souls that wanted to come through. And depending on the roles needed during that time, they would plan the souls that were ready to come through based on what the community needed. So if they needed artists, or they needed more healers, or they needed architects, or etc., then the parents, the two that are going to unify and bring in this being, would say, okay, this is the soul that needs to come through at this time. We need these things, and then the soul would be chosen, and then the soul would come through, mom and dad. And it would be a communal, the whole community would be involved, and the midwives would be involved, and there would be doula. So they didn't call them midwives back then, and doulas weren't called doulas back then, but essentially similar roles than what we see now. And it would be a beautiful experience, and there was no pain. The childbirth was a beautiful process. Many of them were euphoric. Many of them were just very complete peace and calm, and some were celebratory, where there was dancing involved. People were dancing around, and the mother would be in this beautiful, not a bed, but they would be in this beautiful, gosh, I don't even know what the word to describe it. It's like a birthing room created with many flowers, open windows, because it would be indoors, but it would be one of those where air could flow through, no windows. And they would have all this beautiful stuff. They would have music playing, not on a radio, but like, their chimes and things that they would create. And it would be just a beautiful experience. And the woman can walk around, they could stand up, they birth in many different ways. But I don't have any memories of it being painful at any point. And that's because there was no conscious, knowing of pain. So if the mom didn't was in full resonance and alignment with the soul coming through, and it was a ceremony, there was no implant of pain, then it wasn't a thought. And so we control our pain through our mind most of the time, or the severity of it at least. So this went on for many, many generations and many cycles, many eras. Even in Atlantean times, a lot of people talk about birth being very traumatic. I also haven't worked with any clients that have had traumatic births in Atlantis either, but I believe towards the end, when it became very masculine driven, and the energy changed, perhaps there was a period of time where women weren't regarded as this beautiful goddesses bringing in life. And so there was an insert of fear, and then perhaps pain developed over time. I don't know. I don't discount anything. But fast forwarding to our most recent time period, when the Catholic Church really started to become very prevalent, the whole theme of birth changed. But up until that point, really, I mean, if you look at cave drawings and artifacts, women were these beautiful goddesses that were put up and on these pedestals, and they brought forth life, and it was a beautiful unification of a new soul coming through, but with the family, and it was a celebration. And there isn't a lot of information to depict that it was a really awful, painful experience. And so when the Catholic Church came in and they wanted to change the tone of bringing women down a notch or two, because they didn't want them to be up there with God and the Creator. They wanted the men to have more power. Then they started to ban midwives, or whatever they called them, as well as midwives. And women started to become isolated and told to birth on their own. And they were in seclusion. So there was no community births anymore, no midwives. I mean, midwives would be sentenced to death if they were found that they were helping women. And so women started birthing by themselves, secluded in these birth rooms, and nobody could be present, not even the father and not even the doctor. They had goat gettlers and things like that would come in, and if there was excessive bleeding or some sort of issue, they would be instructed. Now, again, this is my interpretation of history, or from what I learned in hypnobirthing training, that they would save the baby or save whichever one could be saved, and then they would not even worry about mom or the baby. They would save one of them, and that's it. So over time, the birthing experience clearly turned into something very traumatic. And over time, as that imprint solidifies and takes place generation after generation, that will go into the lineage. It's part of the epigenetics, and it's in a cellular memory. So when women continue to birth, their great and great grandparents will carry that trauma forward. So it becomes a very difficult traumatic experience, and there's a lot of fear involved within it. So how do we end up in hospitals? So Queen Victoria, back in, it's like the 1650s or something, I can never remember the exact date, around that period, I'm sorry, not 1650, 1850s, 40s, 50s. She didn't want to have a painful experience. And so because she had money and status, she convinced the doctors at the hospital to bring her in and knock her out, which what they used is chloroform back in the day, and they would chloroform you to knock you out. And they would pull the baby out with forceps and other mechanisms. And she was at least one of the first documented to make this a thing, to have medicated birth, so that there was no pain because of all the fear that had been imprinted in it. And there are very, very famous obstetricians around that period. Grantley Dick Reed is one of them, that researched and said, why is it that women in hospitals around that period, because it became a thing and then it was a trend. So wealthy women would go into hospitals, and they would be knocked out with chloroform, and their babies would be taken out. And there was head trauma. I mean, of course, they were not perfect births, but the women didn't have any pain. So it was a win for them, I suppose. And so this one doctor was like, what's going on? Why are women in the hospitals having such traumatic births, even though they're not experiencing pain? But if you go into poor communities and these indigenous communities or the poorer communities, there's no known, there's the pain doesn't exist. They don't have traumas because he was invited in and watched many women birth against a tree, pull their own baby out themselves. All sorts of examples he gives. And he realized that it's not what the women are bringing to the births in the hospitals, the wealthy women that are in this traumatic state. It's what the women are not bringing to their birth, which is fear. So the women that were in the poor communities that were still allowed to have their children in their home, surrounded by family, or whatever their choice was, they weren't bringing fear. They were open and excited to give birth to their baby, and there was an absence of fear, and so they didn't he witnessed these women birthing without any fear. Now, I'm not saying that they were all euphoric, ecstatic, ecstasy births, but they were very calm, no screaming, no crying, and the women would be uncomfortable, but it was part of the process. So around the 1840s, 50s, because of Queen Victoria, they started creating these birth wings all over the world. And it was those status things. So only the elite would be able to go in. And then, of course, as not technology, but as medicine advanced, it went from chloroform to other types of sedatives. And then now we have the what's it called? Oh my God, I just forgot the word. What's it called? Epidural. Okay, I'm getting old. The epidural. And so now we have women going in and they don't even ask questions. They just go in. The doctor says, we're going to give you your epidural. Sure. And they have no idea. They haven't been trained through proper educational childbirth classes. The obstetricians these days never take the time to explain all the things that your body does in order to prepare, all the things that it does during the labor itself, and so much more. They don't explain that. And just simply by the breath, the way we breathe can change everything. Now, hypnobirthing is copyrighted. I'm not going to get in trouble, so I'm not going to share the tidbits of information publicly like this because I don't want to get in trouble. But just know that there are many things, and you can buy the book. You don't even have to take the class. I'm not trying to keep information secret. I just don't want to get in trouble. You can buy the Hypnobirth and Mongan Method book, and you can read it. And it costs, whatever the cost of the book. You don't have to do the childbirth classes. Now, I recommend having a coach or a midwife or a doula help you, but you don't have to. So it's not like it's a big secret. Anybody has access to it. I'm sure there are used books, and I'm sure there are free books you could check out from the library. But there are methods of breathing that you can do to relax your body, but also work with your body through surges or contractions and things like that. Hypnosis throughout, self-hypnosis and relaxation techniques throughout your pregnancy. So these are all ways to combat. But the history of birth has changed dramatically to the hospital births, and women are going in this fight or flight mode, and they're in fight or flight their entire pregnancy. So they're working full-time jobs. They're very stressed. Maybe they have other children. They work a full day, come home. They have to take care of their children and the family. And then they get very little sleep. They're exhausted beyond imagination. And then they don't sleep well, and then they do it all over. So the babies are getting this stress throughout the entire pregnancy. Even though they have the ability to disconnect, physiologically, they're still getting all the same stress hormones as mom is. So there's no way, again, to get away from that. So the soul may exit the body because they don't want to experience the feelings of stress, anxiety, cortisol, adrenaline, and etc. But the physical body is still growing with those hormones. And so the body has access to all of those same emotions and trapped emotions and limited beliefs. And then, of course, the hormones, the physiological effects. So there's a lot going on. And the 3D interference, what they do is they try their best to keep women stressed, overworked, but also in fear mode. So not only are the obstetricians not trained on holistic and peaceful births There never have I ever had in 3 births, an obstetrician ever asked me what my birth preferences are and if I had a birth plan. If anything, they laugh at them and they say, oh, those never work, or they never ask any of that. They just want to know how you're doing right now. Are you healthy? Is the baby healthy? Okay. And then it's a conveyor belt. The next one comes in. They don't have they're not trained I want to be clear, it's not their fault. Many of them, they're not trained in medical school for that. They're just trained to make sure, liability, make sure mom's healthy and baby's healthy and keep them there the whole time, no matter what. But there's nothing about educating them and keeping them relaxed. Now, there could be great doctors out there that do that because they know and they care genuinely about their patients. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen. And I know that because I've worked with hundreds of women coaching them through their pregnancy and their birth. And they would tell me that their doctors had very little bedside manner, very little care, and certainly not open to birth plans. And that's just how it is. It's westernized. It's liability based. It's how much money can we make from these people? And there's a reason why a first world country like the United States and many other first world countries have the highest rate of C-sections, because it's a money maker. But a very important fact on top of that, not just about the money that they can make through the hospital stay, the procedure itself, but some very vital things get passed over during a cesarean birth, and that is the baby does not go through the birth portal. So when a baby travels through the birth canal, or in hypnobirthing, we call it the birth path, just because canal sounds like it's going on forever. And that in and of itself can make a woman feel really stressed during labor, because they feel like, oh, there's this baby's going through this canal. It's how long is it? It feels like it's forever, when really it's like this big. It's like 3 to 4 inches, depending on how tall the woman is, and their own physiological design of their womb, because every woman is different. Even short women can have a longer canal. And when I say longer, I'm talking, centimeters to inches. So it's really marginal. But when a baby goes through the birth portal, or the birth canal, or, there's different words we can use. This is an important portal of energy that's created. So as the baby passes through the birth path, and not only are they getting vital vernix and like this pasty, waxy, creamy substance through the birth path that helps protect their skin. It has antioxidants, nutrients, all sorts of things that help with the baby's skin and immune system. They don't get that when they don't go through the birth path, but they also, the energetic portal, that's very specific. If they don't pass through it, and they go through C-section, they bypass that whole birth portal in and of itself, which is super powerful. It's a ceremonial process where the soul enters through the womb out into the incarnation, the physical incarnation, the incarnation that they've chosen. And when they bypass it, it's not detrimental. I mean, I was a C-section baby. Clearly, I'm okay. And many are. And many have been, and there probably still will be. So if you have had a child that was a C-section, or don't freak out about it. It just means that the soul has to work harder to integrate. That's all. It's not detrimental, although in some cases, I'm sure it could be. But this is not meant to scare anybody. This is just, I'm trying to explain the methods that the dark players have for certain things. And this is one of them. C-sections create money. They're money makers, but they also, more importantly to them, because they know the baby bypasses the birth path. And that is the portal, the energetic portal, where the life comes through. And it's a process. And when that's bypassed, it takes a little bit longer for the child to integrate, so then they come through. In the dark player's mind, they want them to come through the bright lights, cold environment, sterile environment with lots of beings around that probably have negative energy. So the baby comes in completely freaked out. Mom's half sedated and can't move, barely move. So the baby doesn't really get to bond, have skin to skin bonding like they should. Now, these days they do it a little bit differently. And I know they skin to skin with C-sections is more, what's the word? I guess, available, or they know more about it. So, or perhaps the moms push for it. Another thing that they do is they cut the cord, the umbilical cord. Most of the time, as soon as the baby comes out, they ask the dad, do you want to cut the cord? And if they don't, then the doctor or nurse does it right away. Now, this is also important because this is another there's an energetic umbilical cord that connects mom to baby. And when you sever that too soon, not only is there a physical component, meaning the baby loses a percentage of their blood volume that should have gone to them, because it's still pulsating for minutes after the baby comes out. Once the baby comes out and breathes oxygen, that sends a signal to the placenta that the baby has come out and is no longer necessary. So the placenta will start to pulse and send through the last of the nutrients that the baby needs, and until it stops, because it has the signal that the baby has breathed oxygen and it's out of the womb. So it's not really necessary anymore to pump volumes of blood and nutrients, all of that. It's more complicated than that, but this is a simplified explanation. So there are indigenous cultures, even to this day, and I've had clients that were in Cambodians, for example, that did this. They will leave the baby connected for the 4 to 7 days that it takes for the body to naturally, the umbilical cord to naturally dry up and then just break off. It just falls off. So they will wrap the whole entire placenta and most of the umbilical cord, depending on how long it is, in a basket with cheesecloths, and they have their ways, and herbs and things so that it doesn't rot. And then they allow so the baby and the umbilical cord and placenta go wherever they follow each other until it falls off. And their belief is it has to be a natural occurrence because there's also the energetic connection that helps the integration process between mom and baby. And it keeps them energetically connected. Even though the placenta is out of the mom's body, that's still the mom's energy. And it's really important. So in modern day, we don't see that anymore. So the next best thing to do is to wait for the umbilical cord to stop pulsating. And this is, we're not talking about 100%. This could take an hour, of course, but a good majority. So 2 to 3 minutes. So the cord itself isn't like a vibrant purple it's like a fleshy color. It's like a dull white or similar color. And that tells everybody that the blood has mostly gone into the baby and it's not pulsing anymore, and then we can cut it. That's the way it should be done. But for many generations, they have not done that. They cut it quickly, prematurely. The baby loses that extra blood volume, again, for immunity, all of these important reasons, but also the energetic disconnection of the mom. They do that on purpose. So there's always an energetic explanation, but then there's also a physical purpose as well, why they do it. Now, in my years of even from hypnobirthing, I taught hypnobirthing from 2014 for about 5 years. Even from the beginning, when I first taught hypnobirthing, nobody talked about the cord cutting. So clearly it's made its way around, because even from halfway through 3 years in, when my clients would tell their midwife or doctor, well, the midwives knew, but the obstetrician, maybe they didn't have access to midwives, about the cord cutting, and they say, oh yeah, sure. So it's becoming more well known. And when it becomes more mainstream and people like us advocate and we ask for it, they will do it. But I guarantee you, if you don't ask, majority of the time, they will just cut it without even asking you or informing you or educating you on anything. They'll just tell you, here, this is what you do. So that's a really important aspect. So cord cutting prematurely, as well as going through the birth portal. These are things that they do to disconnect mom and baby and have so the soul coming through has a traumatic birth so that they could start their very existence in a traumatic way. Now, remember, they've done everything they can throughout the pregnancy so that mom comes in stressed out, and many times with gestational diabetes and preeclampsia. All of these things are 3D interference. They're designed to put mom in a toxic state, and then the baby receives that toxic energy. Just like in the movies and the TV shows, birth is depicted in a very traumatic way. always. And the only time that it's not is when they're making fun of like hippie type videos where they really go over the top and they make it ridiculous on purpose because they want to make a joke out of it. They want every woman to go in thinking that you scream during your labor and it's very traumatic and you're yelling at your husband and I hate you. Like they make it funny. And that is not how it's supposed to be done. And that's not how it has to be done. But if we go in thinking that that's normal and we have this imprint of what the birth is supposed to be like, and we're not educated throughout the entire pregnancy to keep us relaxed and calm, we are very unlikely to go into the birth itself not in fight or flight or not in a sympathetic mode where we are in adrenaline and cortisol based catecholamines running through our body, which are the pain receptors, and we are tense, and everything that we're doing physiologically, mentally, and emotionally is working against our body, and we will be unable to have a proper birth that the baby needs. It's trauma after trauma after trauma. So they're more likely to convince women to get those epidurals. And I'm not going to go into it now because it would take too long, but it causes so much disruption within the body with those drugs of sending a signal to the baby, to the body, relax. Everything is fine, just calm down. And then the uterus stops working because it's told to relax and calm down. And then there's a stall in the labor because it's been told to go to sleep, and then they have to pump it with oxytocin to wake it back up, which is very painful. And so it jump starts it when it's not ready and natural, and then the woman is experiencing extreme amount of pain, so then they got to pump up the pain meds, and then the body's then told to go back. The body is so confused. It's like, do you want me to have the baby or not? So many things are happening, and they don't tell women that. So we go in and we blindly trust the physicians. We do what we're told, and we don't realize all the things that we're doing to keep us from having the birth that we truly want. Failure to progress is a common term used in labor. A lot of people I know were told that because their birth was taking too long. And it's interesting because failure to progress has the same acronym as fear, tension, and pain. So when you're in fear, you tense up, and when you tense up, your body you have more pain, and it's a cycle that women have during the labor, and so they get so exhausted and so tired that they are like, oh, fine, give me the drugs. And so the whole birth process in and of itself, the whole pregnancy, the whole birth is designed to keep us in fear, in fight or flight or freeze, and we don't even realize it. How many women, when they find out someone they know is getting pregnant, they're like, oh my God, let me tell you my traumatic birth story. Oh my God, my sister's, girlfriend's friend's cousin had this happen to her. It's like everybody wants to come out and share their birth trauma. Not, well, for the most part, I don't think, not with ill intention, but what they don't realize is everything that these women are hearing throughout their pregnancy, all these horror stories, they're soaking it up like a subconscious sponge, and it's now implanted fears that they had they didn't even think of that, and now they're afraid of that too, compounded on all the other things that they were already afraid about. So we have to change the tone of how we birth. I strongly encourage women to, if they can't afford a doula, research it yourself, read the book yourself, watch videos online, watch hypnobirthing type videos. There's also hypno babies. There's a lot of other ones out there. Read, educate yourself, listen to guided meditations, 20 minutes every day throughout your whole pregnancy if you can, right before you go to bed. Take baths, relax, take time for yourself as much as possible, even if you work. I mean, all three of my children, I worked till the day they were born, practically full time. So I was that person too. And we just need to make time as much as possible to relax and make it a priority, even if it's just 20 minutes a day. Shift your mentality, release fear through breath, saying, I release any and all traumas, unknown fears, known and unknown fears that are no longer serving my highest good. And so it is. And you just repeat that throughout your pregnancy, especially if you have had a traumatic pregnancy before. These lies about women not being able to have a vaginal birth after a C-section, also incorrect. there's so many misconceptions and lies within the birthing community. And I have spoken myself to many nurses and doctors who tell me, yes, that's true. So it's not just hearsay. It's not just what my clients tell me. It's not just what I experienced. These are true things. So the birth and womb trauma is an absolute real thing. And they do that to lower the baby's vibration as much as possible from the moment they are born, so that they can hold them and captivate them in that low density, so then they can further traumatize them moving forward with the million other things that I'll talk about in these videos. It's going to take me time to make all these videos because there's hours and hours worth of information that I need to relay, but in a way that's organized. I want to do it as best I can, but there isn't anything I can say 100%. There's going to be more. I'm never going to say everything. It's just too much. And as soon as I stop filming, I'm going to be like, oh, shoot, I forgot that. There's always more. But the point of this video is there are so many things that they do to perpetuate fear, anxiety, trauma, comes through the ancestral lineage, the whole notion of birth in and of itself and how we got to hospital births. The good thing is, though, not to mention these things, I can't say the word because I don't want my channel to go down. Starting that from day one of pregnancy, I'm sorry, of after labor when the baby's born. What's the other word? Circumcision. There's a million things that they do, even more. So there's a lot. We just do your research and truly try to be as peaceful and calm throughout the pregnancy, and do whatever you can to walk into that building in an empowered state, in a parasympathetic mode. So you're excited, you have endorphins running through your body. And believe me, I have coached so many women that came in complete fear, that had the most beautiful birth they didn't even believe was possible. So it is possible. I've seen it with my own eyes. I'll talk in future videos about breastfeeding, formula, SIDS, nightmares, and other things after baby is born. But this video is just really about, pregnancy, womb, trauma, things like that. There's so much more information than what I'm sharing, but I'm thinking for a second if there's anything else I wanted to say in this video that's relevant. Oh, yes, the future. So what I want to say is, because I always want to end with positive note, because again, these videos aren't meant to scare anybody. I just want you to be aware so that you make different choices and your mindset shifts. And you're like, oh, I don't comply. I don't consent to this. This is not how I want my child to come through. So the future of birthing, what I've seen is are these beautiful, almost like birthing suites or centers, little sanctuaries that are, and it's interesting because when I was a hypnobirthing practitioner, my goal was to create a birthing center, a holistic birthing center in Maryland. I had a business plan. I had it all planned out. And it's funny, I never ended up doing it because I went the education route when I work more with children. But I think why I did that was because I was foreseeing something that was coming in the future. And I thought in my mind that was something I was meant to do, but I was just seeing what I was tapping into the future and what birthing will look like, because I see Starseed centers, I see birthing centers, beautiful centers, with midwives and doulas that are trained, where everyone has access, no matter your income or where you live. And it's a most beautiful environment. And they coach you throughout your entire pregnancy so that you are in a more calm state. You're educated, you know what's happening in your body throughout the pregnancy and during the labor itself, so that you don't do certain things. You focus your energy here, you eat well, and all of these other things to prepare you. So these are coming. They already exist. I mean, we all know birth centers, they're all over the place. But unfortunately, the closest one to me in Maryland was 45 minutes to an hour away. Now that's an intimidating thought when, you don't know how long your labor will last. And I'm telling you, the more calm you are, the more at peace, the more in tune you are with your body, these labors can be very fast. I'm talking lightning speed, like a couple of hours versus 8, 10, 12, 24 hours. And so the thought of having to get someplace like that, nobody wants to birth in the car. So we need them more. We need to have these facilities in more places with birthing tubs and other options that we don't currently have. But what the good news is, in the very near future, and within the next 3 to 5 years, I see the tone of birthing change dramatically. And this is going to be more like the Lemurian births or indigenous births, where the whole family will be there and they'll surround the mom, and it'll be a beautiful experience. And I know that exists already because I've seen many hypnobirths where the families were in these beautiful centers, that other children were there helping mom in the birth tub. I mean, there's so much beauty that can come with these births. But we have to educate ourselves as a collective and change the tone and just everything about it. We need to question and really evolve as a collective, and set the tone on where we want to go and what we want for not only ourselves, for the labor for ourselves as women, but also for the children that are coming through, and also the family involved, and the dad or the other mother, however the family dynamics are structured. Everybody should be involved, and it should be a completely different tone of peace, tranquility, harmony. And the more in tune the mom is, and the more peace that the mom is in and balance in an energetic state, the less likely there will be for these unforeseen health issues or complications. And the C-section rate will go down dramatically in the future as well. And it will be really reserved for true emergencies. And I don't really see births in the hospital anymore. Well, not, you can never say it with certainty 100%, but like extremely limited. And I think, again, that those will be those cases where there is some sort of issue that is just unforeseen, because it does happen. And in the wild, babies will abandon their babies that they know won't make it. We, of course, we don't do that, but those are the ones that will likely have to be birthed in the hospital and have more attention. But the whole transition into the way I see the future anyways, the doctors will handle these much better. They'll be better trained. There'll be a lot more holistic treatments, perhaps med beds, quantum healing, biofeedback, all these other things. So the children will have a fighting chance and will thrive because of these new technologies. So the whole tone will change. But for now, until we get there, if you're pregnant, know someone pregnant, help them find this video, direct them to hypno babies, hypno birthing, hypno whatever, any childbirth educational platform that focus on empowerment, education on the anatomy and physiology of the body, that incorporates meditation and mindfulness, breathing, relaxation, all of that, intuitive eating, conscious births, I think there's one called Conscious Birth. I'm not sure. So research, find the one that works best for you. If you can't, there's something for everyone's budget. So even if you can't afford the class, just buy the books, borrow the books, go to the library, check out the books. I think there's so many tutorials on YouTube these days that you probably don't even need to buy anything. So if you can, just do whatever works for your budget. I think that this is everything I wanted to say today, but I'm sure I'm missing a lot, but it's in the book. In my book, Starseeds and the Great Awakening, I go into birth trauma and womb trauma in that. And so if perhaps I've forgotten something, I'm sure it's in there. And I'm sure I forgot something in the book too, because I'm human and I don't know everything, and I'm constantly learning, and I'm sure there's more. But we're learning it together. So if there's something I haven't said that you really feel is important, put in the comments, let other women know, share it. Like the videos so that other people can see it, and we can support each other as a community of women, but also men and families, and the children themselves, so that they come in with a fight, just with strong energy connected to their light, so they're not dimmed, and they're not in trauma as soon as they step into this life, because that's what the dark players want. But they don't have control anymore, and we are fighting back every single day, and we're all getting stronger, and they're losing their power, which is good. And these videos and these and these books coming out, and all of those are helping. So I hope this video has found all of you well. I hope that it's helped in some way. And until next time, for the next video, bye everybody. See you later.